Hi, everyone. Welcome to Party Like a Marketer, the podcast dedicated to cannabis marketing, public relations, and authentic storytelling. I'm your host, Lisa Buffo, the founder and CEO of the Cannabis Marketing Association. CMA is the producer of this podcast, and our guests are CMA's members. They are experts from across all verticals in the cannabis industry who come on the show to share their unique experience and lessons with the audience. If you are interested in joining the cannabis industry or learning more about cannabis marketing, please visit us at thecannabismarketingassociation.com. You can connect with our membership team to learn more about member benefits. We host regular webinars, events, and produce content in the form of blogs, white papers, and downloadables to help members do their jobs better every day. Now let's hear from today's guest. Jon Lowen is currently the CEO and co-founder of Surside Solutions, Inc., a fully connected marketing platform that simplifies how advertisers and retailers onboard their first-party data for media activation, audience segmentation, and omni-channel measurement. Jon is a proven leader in the advertising tech industry, implementing strategies that deliver results across business operations and product development. Previously, Jon was the Chief Strategy Officer at Ceto Mobile, where he was at the helm of growth strategy acquisitions and business development, as he helped increase revenue 40x over his tenure to a market cap of over $250 million. And prior to that, Jon was the Chief Operating Officer and led operations and product at multiple companies, including Double Vision and Carbon Media Group. Welcome, Jon, to today's episode. Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So, Jon, could you introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about who you are? What was your background before you got into cannabis, and how and why did you start Surside? And tell us about Surside.
Yeah.
Surside do.
Yeah. So I'm Jon Lowen. I'm one of the co-founders and co-CEO at Surside. Surside is an end-to-end marketing platform that is focused on the cannabis industry, but we are building kind of forward-looking ad tech for advertisers, brands, agencies, retailers. The goal for us is really to make it really simplistic for people to onboard their first-party data and then use it to create personalized experiences for marketing or retail monetization, ultimately creating a more efficient, cost-efficient, performant platform for you to deliver omnichannel media. I come from the advertising space. I started off actually at a hunting and fishing ad tech company. So that business was really, it was my first foray into the advertising vertical. Our industry, we basically went around and found hunting and fishing websites that didn't have any advertisements on them and said, hey, we can bring you really relevant ads from Chevy Silverado or John Deere or Remington Arms at a time when the Google ads was just kind of providing you click-like links within a display unit, and they weren't really relevant to the experience themselves. But it was like, I say that I started off in like a vice category where we were advertising for ammunition and guns and kind of the hook and bullet industry, and which Google did not allow those type of advertisers within the platform. So we brought kind of endemic brands to those sites. Ended up selling that business, moving into the location-based and mobile business. So working in location and mobile provided us a way to understand like how you can understand consumer behaviors based on movement patterns. We got really good at understanding who went to a Best Buy, but we didn't necessarily know if they were buying an HDMI cord or a Samsung TV. And we wanted to, with Surside, what we wanted to do is really understand the full purchase journey and the full, all the different customer touch points that might exist leading up to that purchase event. Hence why we created Surside, really to capture data from POS systems, e-com platforms, loyalty, CRM, whatever, your website, competitive foot traffic data, all being able to then utilize that to understand the consumer journey to run better marketing campaigns.
Awesome. And what year did you start the company? How long have you guys been in cannabis?
We started in 2018. We got involved in cannabis because we had some some former a former board member of ours that we worked with had acquired a bunch of dispensaries and said, "Hey, can you help us create a marketing edge?" And it kind of pointed us in this direction, and we were building out this solution around identity, and we had experience with location, which was a big component of compliance. We saw that kind of the advertising ecosystem within cannabis was a little outdated. Maybe didn't have a ton of kind of forward-looking partners or technologists in the space who were bringing this level of targeting and information into the industry. And so we said, hey, this would be a really great area for us to kind of prove out the efficacy of our technology, but also bring some mainstream technology to the industry where it was really in need, right? Like at the time, there wasn't really programmatic, there wasn't specific targeting in place based off of foot traffic or based off of purchase data. Measurement wasn't really existent as it related to like return on ad spend and being able to tie stuff back to an online sale or in-store sale. So we brought a lot of that into the industry and have been able to continue to grow over the last 5-6 years as a result.
And where are you based?
We are based in New York. We've got people and offices across the U.S., but we operate across the U.S. and Canada.
Cool. Okay. And when we were prepping for this, you had told me about, and I know a bit about Surfside's evolution over the years since 2018, but it seems like you're focusing now more on what you defined as retail media and what that means for marketers. Can you define what retail media is for cannabis marketers and how should they be thinking about it? Like what have you seen as that journey or evolution in the last 6 years? Where was it? How has it changed? And what kind of framework should marketers have?
Yeah, we've always prided ourselves. Retail media in its simplest form is the ability to advertise or merchandise within the e-commerce, within a retailer's e-commerce site or app, right? So it's commonly used by brands that are being sold within a marketplace store or e-com environment and is looking for some type of exposure within that experience. I always like to go to kind of Amazon and Walmart as really good examples of how retail media has really thrived, but the evolution of it has kind of been in tandem with the growth of e-com. And I think that in 2020 with the pandemic, a lot of people shifted from e-commerce has always been a growing component of all sales. Now I think it's closer to 16% of all retail sales are online.
16?
And that number, 16%, yeah, 16. And there was a big acceleration during the pandemic for obvious reasons. And I think that it was inevitable that we were going to get there. It just happened much sooner. And it will continue to grow and become a much larger portion of the shopping experience. Not only that, there's a lot of intent and a lot of exploration that happens online within these e-commerce environments. And so as a marketer, it's really important to be able to communicate and be present where people are spending time and where decisions are happening. And there's no greater point in the decision process than at the e-commerce store when people are making online purchases. And so it's a really strong moment or purchase point to influence the consumer, which is why retail media has really kind of come up as this really hot topic or consistent conversation within not only cannabis, but the larger ecosystem as we start talking about like digital overall and media buying as a whole. I think that the latest stat is that retail media will be around 25% of all digital ad spending by 2025. So it is definitely a very fast growing segment of the digital ecosystem as it relates to advertising.
Do you by chance know what it was before the pandemic? Like 16 seems kind of low to me, relatively speaking. I didn't know that number, but for all like retail purchases. But do you know what it was before the pandemic? Like how quickly did it get there or what was the bump that saw?
I don't. I actually just read that in a digital shelving report recently from, if I recommend if people want to read it, it was from the Mars Agency, so that I pulled that stat from. But I find that a lot of things, like if you look at like what happened specifically in cannabis, right? Uh, a lot of marketing spend for brands was with bud tender education. It was in-store merchandising. You see people like put displays and end caps in place in mainstream retail. When cannabis became kind of a, I'm blanking on the name. What do we call it?
Essential,
An essential business.
yeah.
I think maybe that's a good thing that I'm trying to phase out the pandemic
Yes.
months. But when it was named an essential business, a lot of those companies were doing online ordering and in-store pickup or curbside pickup. And so there was a huge shift in people like, hey, we don't really have any focus on our e-commerce or our website or our digital presence at all. And so it was a huge accelerator for cannabis, more so than other verticals, in my opinion, because to me, there wasn't much emphasis at the time around the digital presence of stores. And so it was a massive accelerator for the cannabis vertical. And one of the things that I think people, retail, like when we talk about retail media and its involvement in the broader sense, it gives it's a personalization effort. It's another unit. It's a way to merchandise a product, right? And when you're in that experience and being able to visit, whether you're searching for an electric toothbrush or a pre-roll, right? You want to be able to render results that are relevant at the same time, and it's giving you the ability to like look at video and product or more offers or more creative or imagery that might highlight the value prop of this product, right? And as that ties to like digital merchandising, you look at like a product listing page at Amazon, you see 360 views, you see the ability to product compare against where this ranking is within the category. This is the best sold product in baby toys. I have a 16 months, so that's all I think about is cannabis and baby toys now. But there's these other elements within those product listings that are very important in the purchase process, and I think that cannabis is catching up. And this component allows people to kind of shop in a way that they're accustomed to, that helps them kind of differentiate among the thousands of SKUs that might be available to them when there's been this maybe lack of education, as I like, I'm not the only one who says that, is lack of education as it relates to kind of like what is the value prop of this pre-roll or this flower versus that flower. We talk about like terpenes and THC versus CBD and different elements of the composition, but I think that there's other elements that we can bring from mainstream verticals that would really benefit the shopping experience and the consumer experience as it relates to further educating between the difference between brands and products and SKUs and what outcome-based desires or symptoms they're looking to solve for.
That makes sense. And maybe you just answered this, but can you explain more and sort of tease out like the role of retail media in the marketing mix? And I agree with you and echo that the pandemic was a big shift towards e-commerce and like online ordering, things that partly because of the regulations, partly because of infrastructure, the industry didn't really have a focus on. But from what I'm hearing from you, retail media is both the online e-commerce aspect in that real estate, as well as in-store display advertising at the point of sale in that physical experience when customers are walking in. So like holistically, what is the role of retail media in the like broader marketing mix for cannabis businesses? Like how important is it? And do you see any differences between kind of how you approach in-store versus online, or any main differentiators that marketers should know about?
Yeah, at a very high, like you're correct. You can have ads in store. They can be on the point of sale. They can be on the in-store menus. There could be tons of different elements of how it is actually portrayed. But ultimately, at the high level, it's influencing consumer at the point of purchase, and that's the main goal, right? Um, where this fits within the media mix is that it definitely historically has kind of been more of a lower funnel tactic. I mean, people have kind of bucketed it in that lower funnel. They say, hey, I'm doing my brand awareness, or I'm targeting someone with a video ad on a BuzzFeed or a USA Today, and then I'm bringing them to a site. And then once they're on site, I'll be able to influence a search or influence a purchase within the shopping experience. And so they kind of have other tactics to bring them to that moment. We, as a platform, are both offsite and on-site, deferring to that full funnel end-to-end solution within Surfside. So we have a lot of familiarity with that, but retail media itself can actually be everything as well. Like, you can run video, you can run branding elements, you can influence more lower funnel experiences and utilize the data sets and retarget to bring people back. So you really can, it's a really flexible medium as it relates to like the marketing mix within like retail media. Like, one thing that we were very specific with when we launched our solution is that we wanted to be able to support multiple creative types, multiple different experiences, allow the retailers to really own it and customize where their placements would be. So if they want to run product listings, they can run product listings. Those are more like native looking units within the shopping experience that would look similar to any product listing within the site, but it would just maybe be marked as sponsored, right? Where we also want to be able to provide banners and videos and other elements, whether it's on the homepage or within the menu, on product pages, within the cart, post checkout. So I think that flexibility is really important, which also allows this to be a full funnel approach for people. We talk a lot about retail media being like authentic impressions or authentic people. We want to create more of these authentic experiences, which is, we know these are real people shopping at this time on quality inventory, and that's a really valuable asset within marketing. And our goal is really to create this ecosystem across cannabis, but we've also expanded into other verticals to create the same thing that we've done here in cannabis within, liquor and retail and convenience, right? And so it's just people want to be on the ESPNs and BuzzFeeds and USA Today's or the Sudoku news apps on your phone. But at the same time, those are still one or two steps away from the purchase process, right? So if we can create a full funnel approach within these ecosystems that are just that much closer to the point of purchase, there's real benefit there for the consumers, and there's real benefit there for the retailers who are able to create a better user experience and drive more sales and stronger conversion rates on their site.
And I imagine there's a few different like ways in terms of best practices to approach it. Like you if I was a retailer, you could, try to increase basket size. You could try to push a certain specific brand. You could try to sell accessories, like that. There's a lot of different goals that you could have. And I imagine based on your goal, there would be different approaches to that strategy. But can you speak a bit to what are some of the best practices for when you're planning and implementing retail media campaigns that might be different from other channels?
Yeah, I think that with anything, one thing we found early is creative variety is really a strong component. Like how retail media can be activated is with like kind of native assets, where you kind of have a brand image and some copy, and then it gets placed within the format of the e-commerce environment itself, so it looks native to that experience. And so like if we have a variety of assets and copy, we can kind of prioritize products that are selling better, right? And so the flexibility of being able to like dynamically create content based off of an audience or a shopper's previous purchases or their interests that we've identified across maybe other shopping environments is a really big component of what we're solving for, because that's what really drives performance, not only for the ads itself, but for the retailers. And this is a two-sided economy here, or ecosystem, where we want the retailers to see more sales, so they can continue to invest and drive marketing to the site, which then allows brands to continue to influence more consumers and sell their products, right? And so there's this flywheel effect that exists where the brands can help drive revenue to these retailers, and the retailers can continue to improve the efficacy and the performance on site, which ultimately drives more sales for the retailers or for the brands as well. But I think that that's one big component of it, is ensuring that there is an element of personalization. We have the ability to kind of optimize campaigns readily. Another big component of outside of creative is scale. We find that as a brand, you want to be across your entire footprint. Where what we're today actually, this will be, I'm assuming will be released maybe next week or in the coming days. But as of today, as we're recording this, we just announced a partnership with Blaze Ecom, where Surfside will be powering commerce media across their ecom store, or their ecom software and providers and retailers. So for us, our goal is to be available across all ecom, right, and all retailers. We want to create the scale so people can have a single point. Like as a brand, you want to be able to go to one destination to buy across all your stores. You don't want to have to go to Jane and Dutchie and Blaze and Trees independently to buy subset of stores, because ultimately being able to optimize where sales are performing and be able to invest in these specific areas at scale is the value prop of this. And that's what we built at Surfside, the ability to scale agnostically across all these retailers and providers.
And what does Blaze Ecom do? What's their product?
So Blaze Ecom, it is an online menu in order to power e-commerce menus. They also have a point of sale component to their business as well. But for us, we're solely focused on helping them kind of through our technology and innovation power retail media within their menus for the retailers, so that brands that are in stock can own priority placement. Retailers can generate a net new income stream or revenue stream. But I know that they have kind of an ethos of strong partnerships in order to allow them to focus kind of on their e-commerce and point of sale components of the business, and together we'll kind of help build out the other aspects as it relates to the retail media offering.
Okay, cool. So for a simple example, they might offer a Shopify type solution for cannabis retailers in terms of the e-com side.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. And so then when it comes to implementing these retail media campaigns, what are the metrics that marketers should be paying attention to? What are those? What are those KPIs? And what is a good way to measure success? How do you actually kind of define the ROI? What are you looking at there?
A lot of advertisers rely on kind of return on ad spend as the core metric of success. So a lot of our campaigns utilize that metric as a standard. I think that there's definitely differing ways of measuring return on ad spend when you talk about first touch versus last touch, or view through versus click through, single session attribution versus 1 day or 7 day or 30 day, right? So I think that's really important to understand kind of how your partner is measuring the success of the campaign and the definition of that metric, because there is variables that can change within return on ad spend of how people define that. What we've been working with our clients on is making sure that they understand these other ancillary metrics that may be actually more important than return on ad spend, right? For example, you could be delivering a 5x return on ad spend, but your profit margin is 10% on these sales. So you need to deliver a 20x return in order to be able to see a profitable return. And so looking at profitable returns on ad spend, looking at incrementality or lift, some of the key things that we all like to talk about is the lifetime value of these customers. Are they net new customers, and what is that value to you as far as repeat sales? These are a lot of metrics that we go deeper on that help kind of provide the full value of these different sessions and these different campaigns. We we also like to look at kind of this cool metric around like, where does your, I think I mentioned it earlier. I mentioned it earlier with the, like what Amazon does within their product pages, which is they say this is the #1 ranked product in this category. So it helps you kind of confirm like, I am buying the best electric toothbrush, or I am buying the best tent, or whatever it may be. But that's something that we actually talk about a lot, is like, hey, you before your campaign started, you were the 10th best pre-roll across your retail stores or your footprint, and now you're the 3rd best pre-roll. And there's a lot of momentum and value in that as you look at placement and scale and volume. Sometimes it is necessary to grow a campaign unprofitably to start in order to get the momentum that allows you to grow profitably in the long term, right? And these are things that you kind of have to make business decisions on, and understanding kind of what type of cash flow or runway you have in order to kind of invest, because not all campaigns work day one, right? If that were the case, then every company in the world would be successful if they advertised. So there's definitely a period of learning and optimization and partnership that needs to go into any campaign that's retail media or any channel media mix that you create.
Yeah, I appreciate that context of understanding your margins and profitability, because positive return on ad spend, yeah, it does take time to get there, or it can, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're making the money you need to make. Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. So what also are common mistakes that you see? Like, is there any common cleanups you see when you're talking with your clients, or kind of misfires that we can share with the audience so that they don't make those when approaching, or any, I guess outside of not measuring, is there any common mistakes that you see marketers make in the retail media campaign environment?
Yeah, I think like the examples in retail media, or the mistakes we see, are the same we see just in standard marketing in general. Right? It's there needs to be other business goals that you're trying to achieve rather than just sales. Like there needs to be strategy behind these efforts. Like, are we looking to scale footprint in Massachusetts? Are we trying to ramp up sales for an underperforming SKU? Right? Like it's not only like, hey, I'm spending $1 and I'm making $3. Like we always like to have a strategic business outside of kind of benchmarks or KPIs, right? And so I think that looking at this holistically is very important. Being able to understand, hey, I'm running retail media here, but what are you doing outside of that? Like you can run retail media campaigns at a store 24/7. It still would behoove you to be running search campaigns in order to influence Google search traffic to get people to those pages, right? And it still makes sense to run connected TV and video, because there's a lot of time spent in everyone's daily lives consuming video content right now. And it's like I mentioned earlier, it's important to be where people are spending their time. So looking at things a little bit sometimes at a macro level is really beneficial to the overall media plan. Being able to understand the ins and outs of kind of the metrics that we were just discussing as well, like saying, hey, yes, I understand the value of a return on ad spend, but what does this mean for me from customer acquisition versus retention, right? One of the key things we see a lot with our partners is, hey, I'm getting a 40x return on ad spend from this other vendor, or that's my expectation. Like, that's really awesome. You should stay with them. Or it's like, hey, let's dive into that. Like, how is it being measured? What is the conversion event that we're talking about? Is it based off of IP, or is it based off of like a specific user agent? Is it like an email or a phone number, something that's more deterministic? There's a lot of devil in the details type of stuff here. A lot of the times people will just run retargeting campaigns. And so you're just reaching the same people over and over again, and you're actually not driving any net new sales. So being able to kind of differentiate the campaign goal, like, hey, I want to focus on retention. I want to focus on customer acquisition. I want to focus on underperforming units. I want to focus on, scaling my footprint into net new markets, right? Like those are some of the things that I like to highlight as other aspects to a campaign that you want to understand. outside of kind of those core metrics. And then also like being proactive in the copy and the content, what you want to say, like as that's a kind of bringing up these continuing themes. But I think that there's been a miss in the market overall about talking about product and utility, right? And educating consumers, especially when like we talk so much about the people who are going to be successful are going to go after the people who are not yet cannabis consumers yet. There's 240 million legal age consumers in the US, and there's 80% of the sales are coming from this heavy user. That's something I've heard multiple times. I've not validated that stat internally, but like the growth of the business will be to convert the people who are in that other 40% of people who have never tried cannabis. And so I think that in order to do that, there's a big opportunity for people to position, like when we were talking earlier, I mentioned, hey, I wear hokas. Like they feel like they kind of came out of nowhere. And like, but like everyone's like, they're so comfortable, they're amazing. They use this new technology and this foam, and you're like walking on air, and they're ugly. Like I do not like how they look on my feet, but they are very comfortable shoes. And my wife complains about them all the time. It's like they age me, like that's how they were sold to me, right? No one's out there saying, hey, you need to try this pre-roll. It is the best. It makes you so happy, and you can consume it at a higher rate, and you could do this more, and it makes you jump higher. Like I think obviously that there's a fine line in cannabis with kind of making false medical claims. But there is a component to talking about product that I think we should be discussing a little bit more from a branding perspective, also from a retail perspective, in order to start differentiating a little bit more between kind of the mass amounts of solutions or SKUs and opportunity or choices that are out there.
Yeah. So it sounds like, to sum up, best practices and I guess conversely mistakes is like make sure you have a broader strategy, and so that what you're doing in retail media is a component of executing on that strategy, but to not shy away from talking about product attributes and what it does, how it can help you, how it can benefit you from an educational standpoint, but also a marketing standpoint, given that we do have that. And I'll echo, we've heard the same thing many times about the population and how basically the industry is really kind of competing for everyone's customers, like their competitors' customers, but it's still that same group when there's a much bigger group out there that needs messaging, needs being talked to in communication, because not only is there a massive opportunity, but they are showing interest, but they're not being effectively addressed at the scale I think the industry could really benefit from. So yeah, thanks for summarizing that. Well, that being said, go ahead.
I was going to say, one more component to that is that I think that people really shy away from, I think it's somewhere between 1% and 3% of revenue is spent on marketing, right? And it's all spent on these lower funnel tactics and performance. There is a really big opportunity to someone to get out in front, to spend that time and energy to convert those users and educate them and be ahead of the curve. Like there's ability to become a market maker, right? And I don't think a lot of people are investing in that open space in order to kind of be there when those people cross over. And I think that is an ultimate opportunity as well.
Yeah. And even speaking from personal experience, when I first moved to Colorado in 2014, like I will never forget my first time walking into a dispensary, what that experience was like, and that brand. And I was very loyal to that dispensary and that brand because I had such a good experience there. And I remember that more than any of my other subsequent purchasing events. And there's something to be said about that, where if you can get them in first, have that memory and create a really good experience, that it can also open up for brand loyalty once you do convert those people. Okay, cool. So as of today, it's early March, but we know that 420 is coming up, which is a big event in the cannabis industry. And this year it's on a Saturday, which is good. Last year it was a Thursday. We've looked at some of the data around this, and last year it was a kind of a 10-day long event. The marketing had started the week earlier. This year it's a Saturday, but it is coming up and it's coming up quickly. But it is an event-based event, for lack of a better word, in retail. Can you speak to some of the best practices? Like, what do you see? What makes 420 different from, you know, your corner of the industry and business? What should cannabis marketers, I mean, they should already be thinking about it and executing on it, but like, what should they be thinking about at this point? And are there any other lessons from other industries around event-based marketing that would benefit cannabis marketers to learn from?
Yeah, I think that we tell people to start planning now, right? But like as far as like heavy ups or messaging, usually at the beginning of April is when we start to see that happen. We can use. Well, we just published something, a study with Vitrina Group around the Super Bowl, and even leading up to the Super Bowl, 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, we started seeing incremental spending that peaked on the Saturday before the Super Bowl, and the Saturday before the Super Bowl, and the Sunday before the Super Bowl were 109% greater than the average daily spend, and 97% greater than the average daily spend year to date. You know, so really, those specific Super Bowl Saturday and Sunday.
Okay. Yeah.
But the full 2 weeks before, we started seeing incrementally higher spends than the daily averages for all days leading up to it. And so one thing I talk about misses again, it's just people don't utilize these opportunities to create other promotional opportunities. Like if you walk in front of a CVS at any given time, you're going to see what the theme is, right? It's Super Bowl, it's Easter, it's Halloween, it's St. Patrick's Day, you know, like Reese's Reese's has a new shape for every event, right? There's a reason for that. These promotions work, right? And so I think that there's an opportunity in cannabis to continue to message outside of 420 and 710 and Green Wednesday. There's Labor Day, there's Memorial Day, there's New Year's Eve. These are all massive sales days in the cannabis vertical. The beginning of the summer, the end of the summer, huge as well. So there's really these tentpole events. 420 obviously sets the tone for the entire year, but it doesn't always end up being necessarily like a far and ahead leader of the top sales day. Like it can kind of launch what the expectation is going to be for those mainstream holiday sales events. But like 420 last year, obviously you're going to see increases across all categories, but I know we saw pre-rolls increase at 166%, which was kind of the strongest leader in categories, and overall, like as you're leading up, like April overall, like those leading up days is 12% higher than the first half of all sales in the first half of the year. And so like those days are important days to capture consumers, and we see a lot of net new customers enter the market on these big 420 holiday events because there's so much mainstream media and like this unearned kind of press that goes around just the industry as a whole. I think earned media. I'm not in PR, so I don't know if the vernacular
I get
around
what you're saying.
but
coverage at the time.
There's this halo effect of the holiday, and coverage is so massive, and it's like, maybe I will try edibles today. You know, maybe this will be the day, right? And so a lot of people enter the market, and so it's really important, like I said, to be ahead of it and to be messaging and to be trying to capture those users, because to your point exactly, that first experience, everyone will remember. Every new customer in the space remembers that first experience, and it needs to be solid, and it needs to be a pleasurable and seamless and frictionless experience for those customers. And so, and if you can do that, you can win loyal users for the long haul.
Yeah. So think about it sooner, and start executing and implementing sooner than later, because it is coming up quickly. Is that report that you have publicly available? Is that something we could share?
Yeah, we have a publicly available report on our website. Happy to link to it, or provide it to you so you can link to it. But yes,
we'll
it's publicly
put it in
available as well. Yeah, and then we're also we also will be releasing kind of like our 420 grow book stats in the coming week or two. So maybe we'll have that ready as well for you to link to talk about the upcoming stats around 420 and just other things to plan for in the coming quarter.
Perfect. Well, that actually tees up my next question. What are the other best practices that marketers should consider when approaching their marketing strategy this year? You can answer that however you want, whether it's in context to retail or as a whole, but what should marketers be doing?
You know, I'm really big on retail media. I really think that it's just specifically in cannabis, like when you talk about, like, I'll separate it from the brand conversation and the retailer conversation. Brands, this is such a fantastic channel for you as a brand. Like, performance aside, it is ads at the point of purchase. It's in store, it's online. There's no better avenue or channel in order to kind of advertise the value of your solution. I think it's the winners will figure out how to do it effectively, right? Our goal as a business is not only to provide that inventory and that opportunity, but then work with our customers in order to find that mix. You know, what products are resonating, what creative, what imagery, or copy, what across what stores, and then continue to evolve. So I think that's a big improvement to what was available to them historically, which a lot of companies were doing D2C before kind of the recent push that we've seen in beverage and kind of hemp-derived THC. I think that will be a big channel for people as well. We're seeing a lot of requests and a lot of traction as people push D2C through platforms like Meta and just search in Google and TikTok or other channels other search and social and kind of growth. We kind of call them like growth marketing channels in tandem with some of these more programmatically bought vertical or media channels as well. But I think that will be a trend this year. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out with just compliance and how those platforms handle kind of an influx of advertisers, historically being a little bit harsher on them, and not like they by policy still don't really allow them. But that will be something to kind of keep an eye on as well. But yeah, brands, I think that's kind of one of our best practices is kind of looking at trying to make sure that you are beginning to market and putting yourself in a position to be successful, not shying away from the education and the off-platform component or the off-site component to inform that on-site traffic. For our retailers, a lot of our focus has been on continuing to look at personalization, continuing to look at data collection. We are very big on like owning your own data, your customers. So being able to unite data from your point of sale system, from your e-com provider, from your CRM and loyalty programs, understanding who your segments are. So being able to say, hey, these are my existing customers, these are my high value customers, these are my near market customers, my lapsed customers, and then we create unique plans for each one of those segments, right? To me, that's best practices right now. Is step one is truly understanding who your customers are, and you don't need to create 1,000 segments or micro segments, or these people like these products and buy this and buy that. I think if you can come up with really a core, like high level view of who your customers are and start communicating to them at like a 5 or 10, type of segment level, and then get more sophisticated over time, that is a really great first step. There's not a lot of companies that we work with that have the team in place or the know-how or the desire to kind of even get to that point. And so we do love to work with them to try to push to create those different segments so we can then start even further personalizing audiences and KPI goals and campaigns based on what you're looking to achieve, because it's a lot easier to retain a customer than it is to acquire a net new customer. And those have different goals and different performance expectations associated to it. And you're willing to pay maybe a little bit more for a net new customer that you can retain over time. But then it's important for us to then say, hey, why aren't we retaining them? Like, let's look at the other elements within the shopping experience that we might be able to help. So that's another area that we're beginning to explore, that I think retail media helps with is, hey, are we driving conversion rates up? Are we driving more action and activity to your product listing pages? Are the bounce rates going down, right? And so these are other elements and metrics we can look at leading up to that purchase process, rather than just looking at the end. How are we getting there is really important as well, and optimizing to that point.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for clarifying and mentioning about customer segments, because they are so important. And to have that data for them and what their customer lifetime value is allows you to make decisions within context to each other and not just in a vacuum or in relation to revenue goals, because you got to get there somehow, and that math has to make sense. Well, Jon, is there anything else we haven't talked about today or that you haven't mentioned that you want to make sure you say before we wrap up?
I always get asked that question. I was like, I feel like I said it all. I never save. I need to start saving like a big moment at the end for that final question. So you're like, oh, this guy's got nothing going on.
You were thorough.
But no, I think that like, I guess my as a business, for us, like an update, like we are looking to continue to find new ways to lead the way. Like I say this in a positive way, that like we are not looking to become the ad tech solution for cannabis. We want to become the ad tech solution for retailers and brands, right? And we are constantly looking for ways to continue to improve our entire, like how we approach advertising in general, how we're going to be approaching retail media in general, right? And so we want our solution to be just as effective for a Trulieve as it could be for Walmart. And I think that's important that you look at it that way for any of your vendors. And I encourage people to kind of look for the best in class solutions that are available to them. And I guess that's our drive is, to continue to not only solve for problems in cannabis, but solve for problems in CPG and retail and direct consumer as it relates to really any industry or advertising vertical.
Awesome. Well, any contact information, website, social, email, anything you want to share with the audience for how they can get in touch with you or the company?
We don't have any of that stuff. So
The
good
website.
Luck. No, we of course we got a website. It's at www.surfside.io. Also super easy to reach out to us on LinkedIn. Any of our websites or emails, it's usually just our first name, and at surfside.io, hello at surfside.io, sales at surfside.io. I'm Jon at surfside.io. So feel free to reach out at any time.
And it's Jon, Jon, for anybody.
Jon, no H.
No H.
It's actually JONATHON.
Oh, okay.
Because my mom spelled my name wrong on my birth certificate, and we went with it.
There you go.
Yeah,
Nice.
fun fact. Yeah.
Well, Jon, I really appreciate you taking the time today to meet with us and share all this insight with the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in. If you'd like to connect with the CMA community, please visit us at thecannabismarketingassociation.com. You can sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date with new episodes, tools, and insight from us and hear from the marketing community. You can also follow us on social media at Canna Marketing and connect with us on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in learning more about membership, please reach out to our team at membership@marketingcannabis.org. See you next week.